And I think Macarena's here. I could be wrong.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss you.
I'm Macarena Lang. I'm the Assessment and Enrichment Coordinator for the College of Engineering, and I'm coordinating the Encourage Engineering Math Summer Program.
Okay, awesome. So now that I have it all recording and everything, we will jump right into it. So my role here today is to really just go over some of the information that we see fit in terms of getting your student really prepared for fall semester, for orientation, whether that's pre, during, and after. And so within this webinar, we'll be going over all of the information. And then after, we will save that time for like questions, comments, just discussion in general. And with my colleagues here, we'll be able to get some of those things answered. And if we're unable to answer them, we'll follow up with you with the right information. And so just to kind of give you a heads up, for about the first 20 to like 25 minutes, it'll just be like dumping information, which it is a lot. So again, prefacing that this is recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube. You're more than welcome to go back to it and watch it again and learn about all the topics again. But for now, you can just kind of sit back, relax, listen in, and then we'll discuss things after. So these are the topics that we will be covering today. And so first it starts off with, what does your student need to be prepared for orientation, right? Because there's a lot of steps that come in so that they can really be confident when they come to orientation. And then what will happen while your student is at orientation? What does your student need to do to be prepared for the fall? And then there's some summer programs that will help them be prepared if they need them. So if you have registered for an orientation, you're already past this step. But for some folks who haven't, and that is completely okay, there are some differences in the orientations that are offered. And so the first one will be an in-person on-campus experience. So this is a 2-day orientation. They stay overnight in a dorm. And so this is really encouraged because it gives them a good sense of what it's like being on campus before they move here. And then there's also a virtual orientation option. This is really limited. And so this is a 1-day deal. They sit at their computer or their devices, go over orientation, get registered for classes and everything that would be involved, but it is completely virtual. So if you're having like any difficulties finding an orientation date or things come up and you have to change orientation dates, you may want to contact orientation and transition programs, just because they'll be the best way to get you situated or to make any accommodations. I understand, things fill up or things happen. That is totally fine, but the way that you can go about making any changes, we'll be working with that office just because they have the most accessibility to making like orientation changes. So these are the 3 steps for orientation that come from the orientation and transition office itself. So one is getting registered for an orientation date sooner rather than later. It's always just best to come in sooner, get it done early, and then you have the rest of the summer to get ready for college. 2, complete orientation modules. So each student is assigned a set of orientation modules that they do have to complete prior to orientation. This can result in a hold on their registration. So they will have to go in and get those completed. I believe it's through Canvas. If that's changed, they'll be notified about it, but it should be still through Canvas. And then attend orientation. So make sure that they come in and attend the full deal so that they can get really ready for their time here at CSU. All right, so let's start prepping, right? Because although these are 2 or 1-day orientations, there's a lot of prep that goes into all of this so that it's smooth sailing once they come here. So these are the 3 main focus areas that we really want to cover, but there will be some miscellaneous things that we'll add in today. But for right now, it will be checking their CSU email, sending in official transcripts and exam scores, and then completing the math placement tool. So if there's anything that is taken away from prepping, it's these 3 main points, hoping that that gets retained. So it all starts from the basics, setting up their CSU email. So university does require that each student has to have a university email. Oop. Here's some folks listening in. Again, if you can mute yourself, that would be great. But every student has to have a university email. That is how they get all of their communications. That can come from professors, instructors, advisors, just even resources in the university. They all communicate any information to the student through their CSU email. And so if they have not set this up yet, they can. They will need to in order to access it. So they don't just like get sent a link and then that's their email. They have to actually go in and set it all up through Microsoft Outlook. And fun fact, every CSU student gets access to Microsoft applications. And so that could be like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Outlook. And so they just need to go in and set up that account, and then they'll start receiving all of that information. And if for some reason they're having issues, they can just type in that admissions.colostate.edu /university-email, and it'll send them, or it'll direct them to a list of how to get their email set up, both on like a Mac or an HP. And if they have any further issues, they may want to contact admissions and they'll get connected to like a tech service that can help them, like an IT service. So,
I have a question. This is Mike Hendren. I was wondering if they already have a Microsoft Outlook account, does that count, or is this a totally new account?
So they'll get one set up through their CSU account. So, I mean, they can still use that personal account. I know that some students do, but in either way, they get one automatically with CSU. And that Colo State email is going to be ran through that Microsoft Outlook account.
Okay, understand. Thank you for the time.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Elaine, sorry.
I was just going to add, so all of their communications will go to their Colo State email address, not their Outlook account, their personal one.
Yeah.
So for instance, if there's a problem with the registration or something, and I send an email saying you need to switch classes and they're not reading their Colo State email, they may miss that email.
Also good point. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about math, right? Because in STEM and engineering, math is extremely important for students to really be comfortable with. And so they'll hear a lot about Calc Ready, and you'll hear about it too. So what is Calc Ready, right? Like, what does that mean? It basically is a student being prepared to take a calculus course, Calculus 1, Calculus 2. And so making sure that they are ready and prepared to take that course and complete it successfully is Calc Ready. And so every CSU engineering degree starts with Calc 1. So even if they're an engineering open option or mechanical engineering or civil engineering, it's all going to start with at least Calculus 1, which is referred to as Math 160 at CSU. So how do we determine this? CSU as a whole, this is a university-wide, requires a math placement tool to be completed. This really determines on where students are in math. Where is their readiness at? Where is their understanding in it? And so this tool helps us see where the student lies in all of that. And they get two attempts. There's one non-proctored and then one proctored. So whether they are like super confident, but maybe they haven't taken math in a year, just go into it and take maybe some preparation tools prior to it, do some review. So just playing it safe and being prepared for the tool is their best option, just so then they get the results, the best results that they can get. Because if they go into it unprepared, they're not confident in it, it may place them into a lower math, and then they may result in taking the proctored one again. And this is the way that they place into math at CSU, and they can get registered for that calculus class. So let's say they even have like AP or IB credit, or dual enrollment. They'll need to take this because AP scores take a while to come in. I know that AP testing just happened, and so it'll be a bit until those scores come in. IB credit or dual enrollment classes, those can take a while for them to come in and be evaluated. And so we don't want them to jeopardize not being able to get registered for the classes that they need come orientation. So just have them take the tool either way, so that they know what the results are. And then when they come to orientation, the advisors also know where they're at, and what classes they can get registered for. So let's say they take the math placement tool, and their results indicate that they are not calculus ready. So what are the steps that they can take? We have an Encourage Engineering Math program that is offered in the College of Engineering and ran by the fabulous Macarena, who's here on our call today. And so there are a couple virtual sessions that are offered. The earliest one starts June 5th, and then our later one starts July 17th. So they could take that tool now and see where they're at, and then kind of get a head start on getting prepared. And so this program is really designed so that students get a nice refresher of pre-calculus. So maybe they just need a little extra work in like algebra 2 or like trigonometry or things like that. So they'll be able to take time to learn about all these topics at no cost, and they'll be given some of the tools that they need to be successful in completing the program. And then their ultimate goal is to retake that math placement tool, the proctored version, which can be done online through like a ProctorU system. And then they will hopefully get into Math 160. So that's like the ultimate goal of them going through this Encourage Engineering Math program, is for them to be placed into Math 160 so that they are able to take it in fall of 2023 or in the semester that they're entering in.
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Yeah, so Macarena is here and she'll also be able to kind of chime in on some of these things, but yeah, go ahead.
So if you're only looking for, if you place into through all the classes except Math 124, can you just retake the Math 124 section? Or do you have to take the entire placement test again, proctored?
So Macarena, I don't know if you would like to tackle that one.
So I do think you have to take the whole math placement tool again, but the cool thing about Encourage is we have asynchronous content. So that means all of our content is on Canvas page, and students can come in and just focus on that content to pass the Math 124 tool. If they feel like they don't need to come review algebra, they don't need to. They could come to the office hours just to practice what they need to place in the second time, and really just focus on what they need to do. Everything, all the topics are open to every student. So maybe they did place out of Math 117 and 118, which is algebra, but they really would like to practice it again. That's available for them.
So you're suggesting that because it's going to be now a proctored exam, that even if they didn't completely place out of all of it, that it's a good idea to take this Encourage program, because the next step is to retake the entire exam again, but at this time proctored?
Yeah, and also once they get to calculus, they'll have a really good base understanding of all of those pre-calculus topics that they placed out of. Maybe they took algebra years ago. This would be a great refresher. So once they get to their fall semester at CSU and this comes up, they're ready for it.
All right.
Excuse me, I've got a question. This is Fiona. So my student has taken the tool, the placement tool. When do they get the results to find out how they did?
So that comes through the Department of Mathematics. I think the results should be pretty quick, if not instant. They can log back into the Department of Math.
I'm terribly sorry. I only heard about half of that. Your microphone's really muffled. So Bella, if to understand what they were saying, if a student's already taken the tool, the test, they should already have the results pretty rapidly.
Yes, the
With those-
results, yeah, so the results should populate almost immediately after they take the math placement tool, and if not, it should arrive at least within 2 to 3 business days. I know at least within the university, the results are received within 2 to 3 business days. So if they took it like on the weekend, it could, be a little bit until the weekdays kind of come about. But traditionally, when they take it, they'll get the results right after it.
I've just put the link to the pre-calculus program in the chat. And there's contact numbers there too, and they're very helpful people you can call. They do have specific hours during the summertime, so it's a limited hours, but I found them pretty helpful if you call and have that question. It does take some time to kind of percolate through all of the computer systems to get those results populated. But if you have any questions, I would go ahead and reach out to the pre-calculus program directly.
Wonderful. And to register for the Encourage Engineering, that would be through that link as well then?
Yeah, so I think can you hear me now? I think there was something wrong with my microphone before. Okay. Is it better now? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So as I was saying, as I said before, to answer the first question, all the Encourage content, all of the pre-calculus topics are available for every student. So it is a good idea to practice your algebra, even if you placed out of it. Even if you only need to place into trigonometry this time, you can come and join us and really get a good base understanding. So when you come to calculus, you succeed through calculus at CSU. The other question was, what if on the chat I saw, what if someone were to score low, but they've already taken pre-calculus? So the math placement tool will place you. So if you might have taken algebra classes and trigonometry, but the math placement tool will be the dictating factor for your placement at CSU. And
There's a couple of other questions. I put a link to the Encourage program also. It's separate from the pre-calculus program. So it's housed within the College of Engineering, where the pre-calculus program is in mathematics in the College of Natural Sciences. It's good to have the pre-calculus tutorial or the placement done by the time you come to orientation. Then we can help the student get the appropriate math class. However, if it means that he doesn't or they don't have time to review, it may be better to spend that time reviewing and then do the Encourage if you need to get into that right math class. They will know who their academic advisor is. So for instance, I work with students who need to get into a right math class if they're studying and following on with their math placement. Kind of the goal would be to get to Math 160 if you can in the summer, and if not, the best pre-calculus option for the student. We're encouraging Encourage for anybody who doesn't place into a calculus class.
Yes, so if your student took the tool and they said they placed into Math 117, Math 118, Math 124, 125, 126, that's not placing into Math 160 yet, so you could come to Encourage.
And then if you have questions about the results, you can reach out to the pre-calculus center and they can kind of describe to you what those results mean, just because I understand it's a different type of language.
I have just one question. So a student has taken calculus in high school and done fine. Are you saying they should review algebra before taking that tool class?
Yes.
Did they do dual? It depends if you do dual enrollment or the AP test. How are they getting credit for Calculus 1?
They're just getting high school credit. They're not taking, they're not doing the dual enrollment, but I just was wondering in terms of encouraging them to review.
Yeah,
algebra
I would
or-
encourage them. It goes through algebra and trigonometry questions. If they're getting credit from AP, where you would get credit for really the stuff you'll need to take Calculus 2, then you actually, it's not an issue. But if you're just have taken a high school class, you'll still need to take the math placement. And so I would encourage them, because sometimes, for instance, you may not have done any kind of sines or cosines or right angle stuff, and it may have been a year and your knowledge just fades over time. So I would encourage them to go through the exercises just to brush up a little bit before they take that placement, but they will need to take the placement in that case.
Okay, and the encourage is the review.
Yes.
There are separate reviews. If you go to the math, when you sign into the math placement, there is some online review too. There's Khan Academy has pretty good review stuff. Purple Math has pretty good review stuff. So there's other ways to review. Encourage, I believe, is in Macarena. Marcy, you can check me if I'm wrong here, but after you take the placement, it's meant to get you through the ones that you don't place out of.
Yes, so the math placement tool, when you log into the tool, it'll say practice, review before you take the tool. And that's practice from the math department. And it would be algebra topics that even if you took calculus, maybe you didn't do this kind of trigonometry identities, like Elaine was saying, in 2 years. So you do need to brush up on them. You take the tool and you get a result. If that result is not you placing into Math 160 yet, that's when us from Encourage from the College of Engineering could help you review and get you ready for your second attempt to place into Math 160 this time.
And then I'll also add at the end into the chat the orientation website that we have, which also has links to the math placement tool and preparation for the math placement. So I'll throw that in there, and then the students can go in and navigate to that. But in the sake of time, we can come back to these at the end. I just have a couple of things that I want to go through before, and we'll still have some time at the end of it to go over questions and some discussion. So let's talk about some of the other areas that they may need to complete prior to orientation. So this is another placement tool that we use. And so this is called the DSP. It's also referred to as the Directed Self-Placement Survey. Now, not every student has to complete this. It's on like a individual basis. So this can be, kind of mitigated by AP or IB scores, or dual enrollment if they completed like a Comp 130 at a community college, or if they have ACT or SAT scores. Sometimes they do have to take the DSP or they don't, but inevitably you can either follow this chart or your student can enter the DSP to figure out if they need to take it through their RAM web. It'll populate, and this only takes around 10 minutes. It's just a survey that tries to get a feel of where students are in terms of like writing, English, like all those kind of comprehensive materials. And a student is really in control of showing whether they're comfortable with it or not comfortable with it. And so some things to consider when they are taking this is that Comp 130 does not count as like a credit that completes their degree. Comp 150 does. So Comp 150 is a class that is required for every student to complete across the university. So that's across the board. And so this counts within their AUCCs, which is all university core curriculum credits, which basically are credits that every student has to take or complete. And Comp 150 is one of those. So the goal is that they place into Comp 150 or that they already received credit for Comp 150. So those are just some things to consider there when they maybe have to take the tool or they have like ACT or SAT scores or things like that. So just have them check their RAM web and they'll be able to see if the DSP is populated or not. All right, and then one more thing is sending in transcripts. So students are required to send in their high school or community college transcripts or like any other institution transcripts that they've been to. These are really important to get in earlier rather than later, especially when it comes to like community college credits, just because it can take up to 30 days for these credits to be evaluated and implemented into their degree. So the longer they wait, the longer they get evaluated, and then, the longer it takes for the credit to get actually put into their degree. So just send all these things in earlier rather than later. You'll need to send them directly to the Office of the Registrars, or if you get into any issues and you contact the wrong office, they more than likely will redirect you to the Office of the Registrars. But yeah, Elaine, do you want to chime in on some stuff? Oh, you're muted, Elaine.
Button. I thought I hit the button. Even if the transcripts haven't been sent by the time of their orientation, it's really important that they let folks know that it's on the way, so that we can at least project what needs to happen with their registration.
Yeah, they will be given the opportunity to list out all of their classes. I think it's prior to orientation, they can like fill out like a sheet and everything. But let's say they forgot one, or they like just thought about it when they came to orientation. Just having them like complete or like let the advisor know about it is always the best practice.
Yeah, and even with an unofficial transcript, we can get overrides. So for instance, if your student has taken a class dual enrollment at Front Range, and has that credit for it, we can use that unofficial transcript, and the math department will use that to get them in the one that we know that they will need. And it's helpful to do that.
And then the same thing goes, or very similar goes for AP and IB credit. And so one, they can check the list of requirements for AP and IB. There is a website that CSU has already kind of put together that lists out all of the scores and indicates what classes that covers, like what score equals to what class. And then they'll just need to make sure to send those scores in. And let's say they just took that IB class, or they just took that AP test, they'll want to let that advisor know come orientation about that they took that class and what score they predicted, just so then there's at least just some coverage, just in case the scores don't come in what they predicted, or if they do come in what they predicted, then they have indicated that there might be some changes made to their schedule based on their AP or IB scores. All right, so let's segue into what happens during orientation. And so this is orientation day 1 for in-person orientation. So the first day will start with them meeting with their OL. They will be grouped into groups of 20 to 25 students. OL is also referred to as orientation leader. You'll kind of hear them throw out that term every now and again, their OL. That's their orientation leader. A lot of them normally are in like these bright yellow shirts. They're very easy to pick out of a crowd. They're very spirited students, and so they're current students who are there to help the incoming students. They will receive a campus tour, and then they'll head into the intro with their college and academic advisors. So they'll learn about their college, probably talk a little bit about their majors, and then talk about what day 2 is going to entail. And so this is for the students and for any parents or caregivers who are there with them that day as well. So you'll be able to listen in on that session too. All right, so day 2. So day 2 is primarily for registration. So how to get ready for registration day, because registration is a pretty time-sensitive process. So it's always good to take the precautionary steps so that there's no obstacles in the way that may keep them from registering from their classes when everyone is there registering at the same time. So each student on their RamWeb has these things called red X's. We love the red X's. They pop up every single year, so they'll just have to get used to answering them. But students will need to complete all the red X's for registration to open. And so it might be nice to kind of go through some of these with your student, especially things about like the health insurance or like emergency contacts. A lot of students don't know what to put down, and then they hit kind of panic mode day of. So maybe going through some of those areas with them can be helpful. And if not, they can also come back around to it after and make any changes. But the ultimate goal is that they complete the red X's, so that at the end of all of it, it opens up the registration portal for them. And it's very obvious. It says like, click here for registration. And then on top of that, completing any holds. Sometimes holds pop up. So if they didn't complete orientation modules, they can have a hold. Maybe something financial related can create a hold. But holds will quite literally hold their registration. So they won't be able to enter that registration portal and get registered for classes. So just taking a quick peek at their RAM web, or like they can go in and take a look at their RAM web, make sure everything is kind of in order, that there's no like bright red things coming up or alerts or things like that. So that when it comes to registration day, they can just click the registration button and then head right into it. So in the morning on day 2, they will meet with their OL. They more than likely will do like a little like meeting, gathering, lead them to where they're going to go and talk about what's going to happen. And so engineering students will head to the Scott Bioengineering building. I believe it's in room 100. Maybe room 101, I could have gotten that wrong, but it's the big classroom that we have in the building, and the OLs will know where to lead them, and then they'll get registered for their classes using their RAM web. So there will be laptops that will be provided for them come that day, and they'll come in and they'll get into their laptop and get logged in, and then they'll segue into this portal. It looks very similar to this, using the Banner website to register for classes. Again, it's a time sensitive process, and keep in mind that students are registering all across campus at the same time. So there might be some bumps in the road, and that's okay, but that's why there's advisors there, and orientation mentors there who can help them along the way. And if they run into any issues, they will have someone there to assist. And so while your student is doing what they need to do, there will be some sessions happening that parents and caregivers can attend. They can cover topics like the different resources on campus. It could be, requirements for your students, how to support your student. So there are like different sessions that are offered from resources like Office of Financial Aid. I know that there's different offices across the university who do participate in these things. So it's always good just to kind of see what's out there, see what might interest you and what might help your student as well. All right, so for virtual orientation, this is a little different. It includes all the same, topics, but it's all compiled into one day, and, it's totally virtual. So that being said, we understand that with virtual orientation, sometimes it feels a little more flexible, but students do have to attend the entire day. So let's say they don't want to go to the morning session because it starts at 8 a.m. I'm just making it up, but let's say they don't want to go to that because it starts too early. The university can make a note of it, and they'll flag them and say, hey, they didn't attend these sessions. So now they, it can stop them from getting registered for classes. So I know that's happened in the past. We don't want to run into that. Just make sure that they attend the full day and that they know that that is all happening. So they'll still meet and connect with their orientation leader. They'll be grouped like they would if they were in person. They'll get that intro into academic advising and with the college. There will be an optional academic interest session that they can go to. And then normally there's like a lunch or like a break in between. And when they return, that will be registration. So they'll be able to register for classes virtually, and with a academic advisor or with like an orientation mentor. And something to consider is that have them be on like a fully functioning laptop or device that has a microphone and a camera, because sometimes they have to share their screen, or, if they use the chat the whole time, it's hard to follow along, or if they use their phone, sometimes they can't have the same functions. So it's always just safe to have like a laptop or something that they can use for that time, just so then it's easier when it comes to at least the registration process. So yeah. So while the students are in virtual orientation, there are also virtual orientations for parents and caregivers as well. And so there are actually online orientation modules that parents can go through, or parents and caregivers can go through, and learn about the resources and the different things that students can have or can use. And so if you, again, do any sort of research within orientation and transition programs, I can send the link in the chat after all of this, and you'll be able to access those orientation modules. But during their orientation, there will be live sessions that take place from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time that will go over the different sessions that we discussed earlier, like resources, how to support your student, requirements, and things like that. So those are things that you can attend as well. All right, we're almost near the end. So let's get ready for fall, right? Because we're ready for orientation. We've done what we need to do. We have our classes, but what do they need to do when they come to campus in the fall, and how can they really be comfortable with that transition process? So one will be connecting with resources, understanding the resources and connecting with them. So Student Disability Center is one that many students use, whether it's they come to campus that first day of fall and they go and visit them, or they've been contacting them prior to it. But for example, Student Disability Center does have a long wait time. So it's always good to just talk with them earlier rather than later, especially if your student needs accommodations, like testing accommodations or anything like that. It's good to just start working with Student Disability Center earlier on than later on, just so then they can get those accommodations sooner in the semester, because sometimes if they wait until the semester starts, they may not get accommodations until like middle of semester. So just go ahead and contact them and have your students start communicating with them so that they can get those things set aside. And then there's our other like resources like your Office of Financial Aid or like housing and dining, parent family programs. So just making sure that they know what their resources are and that those are there for them. Tuition covers all of this. So being able to utilize it is really important, and that it's always accessible for them. Another area that we want to touch on is time management. For a lot of students, this is a big change for them, their first time away from home for a long, extensive period of time. And so time management can be really challenging. And I can definitely vouch as an alumni of the university, time management was tough. So trying to implement some best practices maybe prior to semester starting is a great way for them to just ease into it when they come in the fall. But Tilt is our tutoring center that is located on campus in the Oval and is open to all students. And they have sessions on time management, on study strategies, or even how to overcome procrastination. So these are real things that students experience and they understand that. So they'll teach them how to do those things. And then of course, understanding how to balance all these different areas that they get involved in, right? Because they come in, they have a full set of classes, they're full time. Maybe they want to get involved, maybe they want to do research, maybe they want to work a job. How are they going to balance all of these things without just overwhelming themselves? Because it's really easy to do that. So how are they going to make time for their schoolwork? How are they going to make time for study sessions and tutoring or socializing and involvement, or even working, like working at a campus job? So the way that, some students go about it is looking at school as a job. So from 8 to 5, you are just a student. You do not do anything outside of that. You don't, go to work. You don't put yourself into any other like clubs or anything like that happened during that time period. Or, you just study from this time to this time. So being able to make those blocks mentally is super important so that they understand how to balance it all and how to prioritize it so that they don't go too crazy after realizing that they may have taken too much on in their first semester. Another area, and this is really important, especially for students entering an engineering field, is being okay with failing forward. So I love this quote. I think it really encompasses everything that we try to, or what our mission is, or what we try to speak about is failure is central to engineering. Every single calculation that an engineer makes is a failure calculation. Successful engineering is all about understanding how things break or fail. And so some students don't have that experience of failure before they come to college, before they enter undergrad. And it can be a really tough experience for them. So being okay with maybe failing a test or having to repeat a class or maybe withdrawing from a class. It's important that when they fail forward. We're not encouraging them to be discouraged. We want them to, yes, fail, but then how are you going to come back from this? How are you going to grow from this and learn from this? What are you going to change what you did last time versus this next time? And then learning or being able to gain new experiences and impactful experiences. So this will lead them into new ways that they can really go about their academic journey. And it just starts with being okay with receiving that failure and then moving past that. So that's just some things that some students struggle with. And we just want to make it clear that it is okay for them to fail and it is okay for them to try again, and that it doesn't have to be perfect every time. All right, go to class. So I know this sounds cliche, but it's really easy, right? Especially when maybe mom and dad are around, or, you don't have that person who's telling you, hey, you got to wake up, you got to go to class. It's easy for students to not go to class, especially when now the accountability is only on them. But when you don't go to class, you're creating large gaps of knowledge. There's a lot of information that can be presented in a class that will not be in your book, or that will not be in the presentation slides that they go over or in the notes. Sometimes it only directly happens in class. So this, concept of consistently going can increase their overall success with completing it. And it gives them the opportunity to connect with their instructors and the professors. So being a familiar face, knowing that you went to class, knowing that your professor sees you, working with your TAs or your teaching assistants, going to office hours, those are really all great ways that they can be successful in class. Because even in your large lectures that have like 200 students, professors know, instructors know when students don't show up. So just being consistent and making sure that you're trying to go to that class as much as they can. So yeah, maybe having that go to class talk. All right, last thing is FERPA. So the Federal Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. So this is just a nice overview of what FERPA means. Even if your student is a minor entering college, they are still protected under FERPA. So that means that inspecting or reviewing their records, only the student or folks within the university have access to that. Requesting to amend their records, limit disclosure of public or directory information, so any information that protects them. And so this requires your student to give you any permission. So they actually have to fill out a form, signing it and indicating that they are relinquishing their rights to all that information. But it's not something that you can, call up or email someone and say, hey, I want to see my students' grades. That's not how that works until they give you access to FamWeb, and you can see some of that information after it. But if you want to know what's happening prior to it, the student has to give you access to all those things. This is also why it is required that students communicate through their college state email, because legally CSU faculty or staff cannot communicate with them through any other personal email. So if they're using a Gmail or a Yahoo or anything like that, we can't communicate with them about any of their academic information or records. It has to be through that college state email. All right, that completes all of it. So I will just open it up to any sort of questions. I can check here in the chat. And yeah, we can start with any discussion.
Bella, this is Mike Hendren again. You're going to be sending us a link so we can re-watch this meeting, probably with our students.
Yes, yeah. So I have this meeting recorded, and actually it'll be a link for YouTube, and then you can access that link through YouTube and rewatch it.
Thank you.
And then there will also be future sessions with all the same information. So let's say you want to attend another one, you're more than welcome to. You can sign up through that initial, I think, link that I sent prior to all of this. to attend another session, and there will be some different faculty and staff who do attend these and have different perspectives on all these like areas.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for doing this. It's been very informative. I was wanting to know, is there a computer system? Should kids come with a laptop that's a Mac? Should they come with a PC? Is there a recommendation that is put out by the engineering department? I was kind of thinking about getting my son what he needed as a graduation gift for high school.
I guess I can't speak for all departments. From electrical and computer engineering, we prefer them to not have a Chromebook. But pretty much any other machine will work. That may not be true for other majors who do maybe more intensive stuff.
Yeah, I'll also add that there are a lot of collaborative spaces that also have computers with all of the systems that they may need in classes. This is offered in at least the Scott Bioengineering building that's located on campus that they have access to. And so we can definitely, you know, there's definitely a lot of similar questions to what type of computer is the most compatible. If for some reason they run into issues, they always have access to the building through their CSU ID, and they can enter in and go straight to that computer lab and use the computers there.
Thank you very much.
I also put in that orientation link to the College of Engineering orientation website. And it does have that pre-orientation checklist, the areas on math, and also frequently asked questions. So there is one on like, what type of computer should I bring to campus? But they cover the kind of the same topics that I did. So just in case you want to refer back to that, it's in the chat now.
Thank you. And do you know like what they recommend? I guess that was reiterating what was just asked, but I was trying to look through the chat and trying to figure out a way to copy the chat, but with the computers, yes, no Chromebooks, but
yeah, like Windows PCs and Macs are recommended, at least for like remote access. So like if they need to do stuff virtually, if they have class, you know, like online or something like that. Those are kind of the more compatible ones. But I know at least with like engineering, like systems or software, sometimes it can be a little challenging. So they always have that backup with the computers that are in the building.
and I had another question, just based on all the virtual orientations being full and not being able to get out there. We're doing the asynchronous orientation that we registered through. Anything we should know about that other than, I know there's some modules I think go to my son's email that he's supposed to do. He says he hasn't received them yet, so I'll check back in with orientation, but anything about.
If you're asynchronous, I would have him, if there's what department is he in?
He's in engineering environmental.
Environmental, and just I'll put a contact in the email for you. It's good to just reach out to the advisor because those are flexible. Like I did one yesterday for somebody who has to go to basic training. So it's good to reach out to the advisor, and let me get you her contact information. Name Shannon Miller.
And anybody have a real fast, easy way to like copy the chat? Trying to figure that out.
I'll Google it.
Oh, I can do that too. I can get a screenshot, but it doesn't.
So that's Shannon Miller's. She's the advisor in civil and environmental engineering, and she would be able to help your son, and also just schedule an appointment with her in order to do that orientation.
Thank you.
And then I think you're able to save the chat. I was able to save it if you click the little 3 bubbles in that chat function. It says
Oh,
save.
there we go. Save chat.
I think that might be
That's it. Yep.
okay. English comp survey, where is that located? Yeah, so oh, I see one for mechanical engineering. I can send, there's several mechanical engineering advisors. So it might be best to just send their group, or Elaine, if you have recommendations of who to send it to, but. On that, let's see.
So I've got a question for you on the parent.
I'll get the
section.
link for the English composition one.
Okay.
Quick question on the parent section for orientation. We've all registered for orientation and got that confirmation, but I've not seen any place where parents can see what the sessions are and to register for those. Is that a separate link, or do we just choose on day 2 when we're there?
I think that might be a day of deal. At least from my understanding, they'll present all of the options and then discuss like where the rooms are. And I believe that traditionally there's like OLs that will lead you to those rooms. But that should be information that you receive come orientation.
Wonderful. And then I have one other question. If they've registered already for dormitories, have those assignments already gone out, or is that something they'll pick up at orientation?
So I'm not sure about where assignments at.
I did put the link to the housing in the chat. But I'm not sure about the status, but I just copied those links to the dorms, but I think they were doing some preliminary ones. Like I can't talk from all, but I believe like Chase has been working on the engineering dorm. But I can't speak for all of the dormitories.
I have heard on the CSU parent page that those don't go out till July.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that. But
Yeah, I
most kids
apologize.
have
I'm really
been-
not knowledgeable. I heard some people talking about match and who their roommate's going to be, and I don't really know about that process. But it
Most
could be
kids-
just a process where they're doing that, behind the scenes, but haven't announced to the students yet.
And am I correct in saying that most engineering students, if they applied for the ELRC, right?
Yeah.
They have been notified that
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. I know he was working on assignments, but
Okay.
I don't know if they've been notified.
all right, thank you. My
But-
son was notified, but not notified on what dorm he'll be living in.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just not knowledgeable about the housing piece. Did you know, Bella?
No, that truly is in the housing and dining services area. They're gonna know more about it just in general. And I think it's somewhat of not a waiting game, but trying to see where numbers are at and where students are going and things like that. So you're more than welcome to contact them. They're gonna be the better route to give you some more information on where that process is at.
Wonderful. And then Patty, you had mentioned that there's a parent communication. Where did you find that?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There's a couple Facebook pages. One is the Parents of Colorado State grad or 2027 graduates, which is the incoming freshman year this year group. And then there's Colorado State Families. Let me look them up.
Thank you so much.
I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you,
Okay.
Patty.
Sure.
And then I don't know if y'all had seen what Macarena put in the chat, but sounds like students will be notified 6 to 8 weeks prior to their move-in date, which I believe is like August 17th or something like that. It's somewhere within that week. Yeah, August 17th, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So they should be able to know where they're going and who they're living with around that time. Okay, we have a few minutes left. Any last minute questions? I know that
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was chat earlier.
I have a question. May I give? Uh, the question is that my major during the studying during the studying time, which is the electrical engineering, that I can get that nanotechnology class.
Which
It's
technology class?
nanotechnology. Nanotechnology.
Oh, nanotechnology.
Yeah.
Not at the, that would in general be a graduate level class, I think,
Mm.
for electrical engineering.
It's not problem to study both of them.
Are you an undergraduate student or a graduate student?
I am an undergraduate student.
Yeah, so what our curriculum does is it's kind of starts off with a really good solid base of things. So you learn about electric circuits, just very fundamental stuff, both AC and DC. And then move on to some junior level classes where you build knowledge in electronics and electromagnetics, which is like wireless communication kind of topics and some signal processing. And then from there, you can build on to other things, right? But there's that would be a graduate level, and we do have some material science courses. That would be more of like of an upper level class.
Okay. Thank you.
And then there's one more question in the chat for grad year. So just to clarify, the 5-year program is for the biomedical dual degree. Traditionally, students can also complete just a single engineering degree in 4 years. Of course, if all the things are in the right spots. But it would be 2023, so 5 years plus that, and it would be 2028, right? If it's 5 years.
Yeah, 4 years. So.
But if they are in that biomedical dual degree program, it would be the 5 years and it would be 2028. Okay, so we have hit our time. So I will stop recording.